Okay, the meeting of the Brimfield Township Zoning Commission will now come to order. It is Thursday, February the 11th, 7 p.m. May I have a roll call, please?
Ron Jones,
Here.
Tom Johnson,
Here.
Debbie Darlis,
Here.
Tom Sargent,
Here.
Patrick Blair,
Here.
Beth Halen, Colette Wolosnik,
Here.
and also present is Economic Development Director and Zoning Inspector Mike Ladd, myself, Lauren Kaufman, Zoning Secretary, and Portage County Regional Planning Director Todd Peets.
Has everybody had a chance to go over last month's meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Also,
I'll second it.
okay, all those in favor signify, please.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried. So I have a motion to accept the minutes from last month's meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Second, anybody?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion's carried. All righty, this meeting will be a meeting, a work session discussing the Brimfield Township Comprehensive Land Use Plan. And we're going to have an update from Todd. And I guess I'll turn that over to Todd then.
Okay. Well, I got three different things to show you. So we've got the chapter 9 of the future land use plan. We've got the implementation and the goals in chapter 10. And then I've got, I believe I have the future land use map. Let me see what else I got. And the developable areas map. And then if we don't want to look at that, I've got some the beginnings of our first set of interactive maps. So I've got an interactive map showing all the zoning in the township, and it shows you the acreage of that zoning, et cetera, et cetera. I have all the subdivisions that were approved since 2000, and that's interactive. It tells you the acres and the number of lots and all kinds of stuff like that. And then I have capital improvements that are road and transportation related that are also interactive maps. So you could either do the two static maps first, we could do the interactive maps, or we could go to the fun stuff, which is, I say it's the fun stuff because it's the boring stuff. It's going through the actual document itself.
Todd, this is Pat. On that interactive map, is that the one that you've talked about for a couple of years that's going to be made available to the public?
Yeah, well, we only made these interactive maps last year, so I can only say I talked about it for about a year now. So yeah, this is an example of one of the maps. I mean, there's other maps we're going to be making for the plan. So if you want, I can show you. We can start with that just for fun. That's probably the funnest of what we're going to talk about today anyway. So let's start with something fun, and then we can go to the other stuff. So here, I'm going to share my screen and pop it up here. Tell me when you see it. Up there it goes. All right, so did it come up? Whoop.
Yeah.
Where'd you guys go? Okay, I see you guys. All right, so this is the transportation map, and here is the legend. So basically, what we're looking at, this green here is this green down here, and these are proposed potential trails that are being talked about by the Park District and AMATs. Okay, and then we have roadway minor. So there's some roadway minor stuff, and I'll click on those in a second. We have traffic control and roadway improvements, which are the red. So you'll see a few red spots in here, and those are roadway improvements and traffic control. And then this blue is also a traffic control maintenance. So there's a blue here. I think that's Mogador Road. I'm pretty sure. And then I have like major capital improvement projects. There's 4 of them identified. And then I have these small little green dots, which are minor roadway rehabs. There's a couple of green dots here. There's some green dots here. It'll tell you what those are. And then this red is a bridge, and that bridge is right here at 76 and 43. This one also is probably, this is at the other interchange at Talmadge Road. And so this is probably the other major bridge project. So if I click on, for example, so how is this interactive? So if I click on this first one, it comes up and it tells me the total estimate is 350,000 for this one project. But there's a lot of information in here. So I click on there and it gives me information that right now you guys might not be interested in, like who's the project manager and who's the engineer and stuff like that. So these are the kind of things you're probably not super crazy to see. With this last one, for this first project, it starts, there's a comment here, but it actually starts in year 2021. This is the interchange at Talmadge and 76. The cost of that project is $9.9 million. So it kind of tells you that. And then, the road name is Talmadge. The intersection is Talmadge and Mogador and 76. And then, what's the improvement type? It's an interchange improvement. So you have that, and then here's another major improvement. So again, it gives you who the project engineer and that is, but then it also tells you this cost is $371,000. This project is a resurfacing and repair. It's just on the Summit at the Summit County line. And even though I don't know why there's a comment here, but there's a comment. It's 2023 is when that project will be done. Here's project number 4. And there you go. Let's see here. So that's project 4, and I think I might have to go back here. So that's on I-76. It's a resurfacing repair project. It's due to happen in 2023, and it's just under $9 million. And then this is on 43. And so this one is from Talmadge to the Kent Corporate Line, resurface and repair. This will happen in 2024, and it's $800,000. So this is information that the normal citizen can't get. Like, when's it going to be done, and how much money is it? You know what I mean? They really have to go looking around for it. The common citizen would have to go looking around for it. But then there's these other things here. So if I click on this one is basically, let's go this way. So this one is, again, probably more information you want to know, but it tells you everything about the project that we got from ODOT. Let me go back one. Portage standard build. I'm looking for the MUT. This one said it's a roadway minor rehab. They're calling it to happen in 2023, and this is again, this is that state route, I-76 area, and again that was $8.4 million. Here's 43 though. So here's 43, and we just got, and again we're going to clean these maps up a little bit. This one says on state route 43 in 2024 they're going to spend $826,000. If I click over on this trail, for example, it just talks about, they really don't have an amount yet for this one. This is a proposed trail that the Park District's working on, and it's 4.6 miles. If I go a little further, that's not what I wanted to do. That's the other thing, you can blow up and blow out of these maps too when you get them. So when you're playing with them as a citizen, you can just do what you want with it. So then this is another trail project in on 261. I believe that's just north of your border, but that's 4.13 miles, and then you got these red marks. So those are roadway improvements. Whoops, if I can get it to go, gotta click it on just right. There we go. So on this project, that project's going to start in 2026. I guess it's most of 261, and they're looking to spend $8.7 million on 261. And then you got little dots like this one over here, which is probably just a resurfacing project, which is exactly what it is. It's a resurfacing project in 2021. It says it's roadway improvement safety. This is probably in the area of Maple Crest, those new projects where they're probably going to do maybe a light there. But the total estimated cost of this project is probably more than a light, because the total estimated cost of that project is $6.7 million in 2021.
Hey Todd, is
Yes.
those costs, is that the township's cost, or is that the total cost of the project? And then
These are
percentage from ODOT and all that?
these are pretty much ODOT's costs.
Okay.
ODOT's contribution. I think that would pretty much be your entire budget for the township.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So the Mogador Road, Mogador 70, not 76, Mogador Talmadge Road.
Right
Is,
here?
is
Yeah.
that the exit coming off of 76?
I don't think so. I think this is 76 here. This is Talmadge here, right? So
Yeah.
Mogador is here, right? And so it
Right.
gets up to here, and then this is, so I'll just click on this and see what it tells me.
So I
So
thought
this one says pavement markings. Click down. So it says traffic control maintenance. Not a lot of money. It's 2021 and it's $150,000 is the cost.
Yeah, they resurfaced that stretch last year. They're just gonna paint.
Did they?
Repaint it. Yeah.
yeah,
That's a lot of money for paint.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to do the one right next to the
I believe
76.
that is part of it. You know, we just, you know, with the way it was color coded, it just didn't show
Okay.
Mogador here, but I believe
They've-
Mogador Road is part of that interchange process.
Yeah,
Okay.
they've taken all the trees down back behind the Peterson heat treating and those buildings back there along
Oh,
the
okay.
exit ramp.
Okay.
They're,
Well,
they're
I
going
was,
out,
I
they're
was
going out for bid
also,
on the 21st. Yeah.
I was also referring to the one that is right at the Mogador Road exit and entrance at 76 there. You know, we have to cross over to go
Yeah,
on
right here.
Mogador Road. You have to go over and I thought they were going to
Right
redo
here.
that also.
They're redoing the westbound exit ramp.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I have no clue what they're doing yet, but
Okay.
Well, Tom, why don't you stop and ask them?
nobody asked yet.
Yeah, well, it's almost asphalt season, so it'll be asphalt
Yeah.
season in probably
Oh,
another
yeah.
month or so. So you'll probably be able to see some action or activity.
We can do the orange barrel polka.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So here I'm gonna show you another one of the maps we did. So this one is just the zoning districts. Did that come up for you guys? The zoning districts?
Yes.
All right. So this is
Oh,
okay. So here's the zoning districts. We need to change this one because the trustees just changed that. But you can, with these, we can do it. We can probably add a few more pieces of information for it. But this, when I just click on, whoops, oh, I'm just going to click on this one. So when I click on this, it lights up all that boundary, that R1 zoning district, and it tells me that I've got this area that I just lit up, even though the sign's in the middle of it. It says that it's 1,576 acres of land, and so, you know, or 68 million square feet or something like that. Oops. And so I can click on anywhere, you know, like for example, I can click on the town center district, and it shows me all the zoning for the town center area, which is 313 acres. I can look at this highway commercial that you have, and this one's a little different.
That's a road.
Oh, I'm on a road. No wonder. There we go. So the highway commercial is 146 acres. So you can see how much acreage is involved in some of these areas that we're talking about. This high industrial or heavy industrial, 326 acres, and these light industrial areas, that's 217. That's 122. That's 71. Rubbermaid is almost 88 acres. So you can click around really quick and see this kind of thing. This open space conservation is 155 acres. This rural residential down here is 800 acres. You know, so it's just a little bit more user friendly. You know, maybe in either part of this or in the near future we can add like what are the permitted uses and maybe some site areas and stuff like that. But you know, that's the kind of stuff we can add to this as we continue to build on it. It becomes a living document. You basically can add as much as you want in this box at some point in the future, at any point in the future. So,
hey Todd, who's the administrator for the map then?
well, we work with the township, and we actually help update the map. So we could be the administrator for that, and it's really not that hard for us to do that.
Okay.
I mean, the map really doesn't change all that often. It changes from time to time. It's just small changes. But you know, as we make changes to the regular zoning map, we can make changes to this really quick, you know, relatively quickly. Gail's taking care of her daughter. Her birthday was either today or yesterday. I think it's today. And so I think she's celebrating with her daughter, but she's online here. And so I'll make all kinds of promises that Gail can do these things.
Thanks,
Anyway,
Gail.
I'm just joking,
Hi,
Gail.
Gail.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so we're going to go. Oops. Did I just get us? I just got us out of here. Hold on. Let me show you one more thing. Sorry. So I got to move this around a little bit. There we go. Here's a subdivision map. Did they come in, your subdivision map?
Yeah,
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
it
So
was.
these are the subdivisions that have been slided around if I make it smaller. But you can see the different subdivisions have been approved since 2000 in Brimfield. And that's all of these. So I can click on these subdivisions and it'll tell me about these subdivisions like Cranberry Creek. There's 137 lots and there's 138 acres in Cranberry Creek. Sugar Maple, 84 lots, 63 acres. Kings Ridge, 62 lots, 65 acres. Country View Estates, 50 lots, 42 acres. Pleasant Lakes is a bit of an anomaly because you've got some of the condos in there. So you got 946 units, 218 acres. That Cascades is a commercial development. So you have 107 acres of Cascades. We're going to add in Maple Crest shortly. Whispering Woods, 50 acres. But you can see how fast you can go through everything and see all of what you've got, with this map versus just looking at a paper copy and not having that information available to you. So I just want to show that. And again, you can blow these up if you want, and look at them more closely. Walden Point, 73 lots, 11 acres. Of course, they haven't developed, they haven't done all their phases. And then here's Marsh Landing, 75 lots, 34 acres. So gives you some ideas of the density and intensity. We probably left one out, Butternut Ridge, 114 lots, 66 acres. So anyway, so those are these maps. And if I do this, I think I can get these maps on there too. No, maybe not. So I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm gonna grab these maps next.
How many lots are supposed to be in the new Sugar Maple Farms development?
Yeah, I'm gonna guess it's 107, something like that. I think that's what the total was, but that's off the top of my head, so don't quote me on that. I don't think it's many more than that, or it can't be much less than that.
And that's going to tie right into Sugar Maple?
It is going to tie into Sugar Maple. That they're going to have two different ways to connect their water and sewer, connect their water lines at least. And I think their sewer line might be going that way too. And it's good to have the second connection. So here, let me blow this up. So this is the future land use map, but maybe I should go to the other map first. So let me go to this one. So this is the Developable Areas Map. And so we sat down with Mike and discussed a number of different concepts. So one of the things is these green areas you see, and we're calling those developable areas 1, these light green areas. The primary reason why we're calling them developable areas 1 is because they are within a quarter mile of water or sewer. So all those areas, and you can see that's where most of the subdivisions are located, and the potential subdivisions are located. The developable area 2 may be missing sewer, or maybe missing a water line or something along those lines. And then developable area 3 are areas that pretty much are devoid of water and sewer lines. It's interesting because when we looked at, when Mike and I and Gail sat down and looked for how to preserve agricultural areas, these were the areas that had all the CAUVs, these little areas right here and up here in this corner. They're all have CAUV, the agricultural exemptions from the auditor, and they also don't have water and sewer. So it makes sense for them to be the less desirable areas to develop, and the areas that we'd like to see maybe preserved as agriculture, as long as we can accomplish that. So then the other couple of things here, that this clear box here you're seeing, this is called the protected areas. So one of the protected areas, for example, is the Kent Bog that's up here. That's the Kent Bog. I think there's a couple other protected areas in here and down by Mogador Reservoir and around the reservoir are protected areas. And those probably are either open spaces or agricultural easements or maybe parks, because I think Messner Acres up here is a future park, which is preserved. So some of these may be parks. Where's Edson Road? Yeah, this is probably that one community park here off of Edson. So that's what those are. Obviously, you're not going to develop in those protected areas, at least not develop anything other than government facilities or park stuff. These diagonal lines are wetlands. So you can kind of see the wetlands are scattered around the township. So those aren't really good areas for development, obviously. Then you got this dark red. You can see that following the streamlines and stuff. Those are the floodplains with it. So obviously you wouldn't want to develop in those floodplains. And then we have source water protection. We have some wells like right here, and there's some wells right here. And so there's this green line. So like if somebody was to spill a chemical, this is the zone that it would take 1 year for that spill to potentially contaminate the groundwater. So you wouldn't want to put industrial in there. And then this it's more of a brown line. You can kind of see this moving like this. That's a 5 year to get to that. Oops, let me see if I can slide that down. Well, that's in my way. Get on my way. Well, okay, I'm gonna go up here. So there's that same line is here. The well is probably right. The wellhead is probably right here. It's going to take, if you spilled something between this line and this line, it could take 1 to 5 years to get to the wellhead. So again, you want anything that's within a 5 year, protection area. You don't want, the contaminants to really be stored there or manufactured there, that kind of thing. So that's how we made this developable area. So again, the green areas, these light green areas are the best areas, and most of them are developed or are developing. And then the yellows are the next best areas. And then the pinkish colors are the areas you want to kind of stay away from. So then the next map I have is the future land use map, which is different than your zoning map. Similar, we want to incorporate similar things because why you get too different from your zoning map with a future land use map. But then at the same time, when you're looking for, to guide development for the future, where should that future development be? So, for example, here's the town center area again, which is zoned that way. And then in the highway commercial, and 43 here, go north towards Kent is shown as commercial. I think that's the way your zoning pretty much is anyway. And then some of obviously your existing subdivision areas are the yellow color for residential. And then the rural areas, which I mentioned before, was down here, a big rural area here, and then you had the Sunnybrook Golf Course right in here, and then you've got, the Lynn Road area and the east of Edson Road, and up here off of Malloy are other areas that are shown as rural residential. And that's pretty much how they are. Maybe, and this area here is where, this area here is this is Menards, that's Myers. And this is that area that was just rezoned to general commercial, and the back was rezoned to IC. And then you got just Cricket back here. And then you got across the street from Talmadge. So that area, we're showing that as like a mixed use, which makes sense. And the only other really, and there's again, Rubbermaid's over here. The only other area that's maybe different from the zoning map is this area here. There's some industrial or non-residential uses up this way into Kent. And this is one of the few big pieces of property that are right in this area. So we thought maybe we could possibly look at that as another industrial area as this industrial area becomes full, and provide some additional, what's the word I'm looking for? Additional opportunities, I guess, or diversification of your tax base. So that's basically what we were proposing as the future land use map so far. Do you guys have any comments about anything I've done so far with the maps before we go into the other stuff?
No.
Yeah, I just have a question. Is developable really a word?
It sure is.
Okay.
It is. It's like, a lot of times people buy land and then they don't know how much of that land is, developable, and it might sound funny if you say it really fast, developable.
Say that fast 3 times.
Yeah, exactly. But so you typically you have your lot and you have a building footprint. So that footprint is where your building can go. And then in that footprint, as there are wetlands, and you have water and sewer. I mean, you can only do so much without water and sewer. So there's a lot of things that impact how a site can be developed. There could be topography, for example. I mean, it doesn't have to be water. It could be elevation changes that prevent you from developing too. So anyway, okay, so if you guys don't have any questions about that, or before I do say that, is there any more questions before we move on?
No.
Okay, so now let me stop the share here. And I have another share to do. Is it this one? Is it this one? That's this one. Okay, so now we're gonna probably go quickly through this section, but we're gonna go a lot slower in chapter 10. So in this one, this is part of the land use discussion, or a good part of the land use discussion. So one of the things that that I want to talk about here is, and I hope I got the whole thing. Well, okay. So hopefully you have this up as well, but the land use table. So this land use table that goes over from here to here is pretty interesting. This land use table is based on how the auditor has evaluated the use of land. So in Brimfield, agricultural use, for example, they have over 4,000 acres of agricultural use, or basically just a little bit more than 29% of the entire township is considered agriculture currently. Then parks and preserve, you have over 1,100 acres of parks and preserve, which is 8%. You have your cemetery, which is 15 acres, which is like 1/10 of 1%. Hospitals and churches and things like that is 31 acres, almost 32 acres. Government, and I'm still trying to figure out in my head where you get 177 acres, unless they count the land owned by Akron, city of Akron, or whatever. But 177 acres is owned by government. Single family acreage is 4,300 acres of that, which is a third of the township. So 1/3 is residential, 1/3, practically 1/3 is agriculture.
Mayor,
Two family and multifamily is a small fraction if you compare the acreage to the number of single family residential that there is. There's about just over 300 acres there. So there's like 10 or 13 times more single family than there is two family and multifamily residential. Then you get over to the commercial industrial area. So you have just under 700 acres of commercial. And that's 5% of the township. And then you have built industrial of 483 acres of built industrial, or 3.5% of the township. But you still have, I don't know if that's vacant industrial or that's just vacant land of 1,487 acres, or 10%. It's still considered vacant or doesn't really have a designation to it. And then you have how much land is in right of way and transportation. And believe it or not, you have 867 acres of right of way. And that might be because how wide the right of way is for 76, for example. And then you have 1,500 acres of wetlands and water, you just can't build on. And that's 11% of the township. So.
This is Pat.
Yep.
Is there any value in trying to compare the land use percentages and totals of our county against another county or another township? Do you ever run across that type of thing?
Yeah, we do have that. I have had that request before. Some people want to know what the rule of thumb is for how much commercial should you have for your population to make sure you have enough commercial for your residents. Sometimes, you guys, obviously because of the Cascades and also Maple Crest, you guys have a lot of commercial now as far as acreage goes, and probably square footage too for the residents that you have. But you're serving those projects are serving not just you, but Talmadge and beyond. I go there and I live in Ravenna Township. You know what I mean? So it's serving an area much greater than just Brimfield.
well, just take it in.
Well, a little bit like the Parks and Rec being almost 9%.
Yeah.
Is that normal? Is
It
that
can
high?
be. It can be. I mean, got to remember, see, one thing that always, when you just look at raw acreage for parks and preserves, I think it is misleading, because a lot of that land is unaccessible. You can't access it. So like the Kent Bog, for example, I think you can go on that one, like quarter-mile trail, but the rest of the 50 acres or 80 acres, whatever's in there, you can't see or touch or anything, and so I do know, I think I also know what you're saying, like, do we need to buy any more land for preserve or for parks? And I would say, based on acreage, maybe not. However, based on what your population may need in the future for recreation, I mean, do you have enough recreation acreage out there? So there's a number of different ways to do that. If you want, I mean, I can compare our percentages, you know, to like the city of Kent and to Aurora or somebody like that. I know those are cities, and you guys are practically the same. You know, you guys are getting up there that you're almost the same size as Aurora.
Mhm.
So, and you know, so we could kind of compare that. Kent might not be fair because they got the college there. Rootstown might not be fair because they're much smaller than you in population. If you want, I can compare you to the Talmadge. I mean, I don't know if you want me to do that. I don't want you guys get. I don't know. I know you guys are friendly with Talmadge and stuff like that. I just don't want to say anything that's gonna rile you guys up.
It's not necessary right now, but this is all digitized information. At some point, we should be able to just pick out any other township and do a comparison on screen.
Well, it's funny you say that because last Thursday the commissioner wanted us to do a county-wide comprehensive plan. You know, we're a little bit we're talking more specifically about some of the things in your township than we would talk about at the county the higher level of the county level. I mean, we'll probably just be, you know, just touching on things versus getting more specific. So, for example, what we could do when we do that plan, me and Gail had already been talking about, you know, taking all the different communities we have. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit, but we have something called asset mapping, which kind of does a lot of what we're showing here. And so she's already kind of got it broke down by every single community, including the villages, including the cities. And so we probably just some minor tweaks there, and we could probably compare side by side any community based on acreage. And the only problem is not every community is the same size. And then I could probably do, you know, based, you know, take per capita to acreage and see what the per capita differences are and similarities are. And we probably could do it that way too, as another way to evaluate how much a community has of certain kind of resources, like how many acres of park do you have per person in your community, and you can probably compare all the communities to see how they stack up against one another. I mean, Charlestown, there's almost nothing left of Charlestown Township. They have West Branch and they have the Arsenal, and that's probably 3/4, if not more than 3/4 of their county land area, or their township land area, sorry. So anyway. Does anybody else have any other questions or thoughts on this?
Oh, you did great. Thank you, Todd.
One of the other things we were looking at was, we also mapped out here for you. We have a nice little write-up about what's going on and what we perceive going on in the township, but we also included some information about some of the zoning changes we had talked about, I believe the summer of 19, fall of 19, and we acted on a couple of those to start the year. But there's some more changes, and we had shown these, and we can go into more specifics on these probably later. But we don't. I think this is after the plan is approved. We would go back and evaluate these for implementation as we go through.
And very expensive.
I'm going to go back to this next one.
We are.
Hold on, where'd it go? This one, there it is. All right, so now this is the beginning. This is the goals, objectives, and policies, the implementation section. You know, again, like up through chapter 9, it's like a snapshot of history. You know, this is this is the data we have, the best data available. I mean, it's like, poof, there it is. And just like the survey, you know, those people answered the survey the way they felt on that day, and their perceptions might be changing as time goes on. So everything's a living document, you know, including the implementation plan. And so when we talk about the implementation plan, there's really like 9 basic core principles here for implementing it. And basically you adopt the policy as a development guide. It's meant for both funding and land use decisions. Educate I'm going to just read through just the titles of these things. And, the second one is to educate the public about the plan, so the citizens are aware of the adopted plan. And I think that's where interactive mapping can also help a lot, showing proposed changes that we have coming up, or proposed, and so they kind of know when it is, how much it's going to cost, the timeline, all, and the type of project it's going to be. Revise the zoning code, like we were just talking about, to support the goals, objectives, and policies contained in the plan. 4 is to require the compliance of the plan in rezoning development requests, provide written record of such discussions and agreements. So there's going to be, basically you want to compare your future zoning requests to the plan as well as your zoning code. And there's going to be time when somebody's going to come in and say, we want to do something completely different, but we think it's going to benefit the community. The plan is, again, a living document. It should be amended to accommodate those proposed changes, just like the zoning code should be amended to accommodate changes that would be beneficial for the community. Maintain a future land use map, which we talked about briefly. Obtain, allocate funding to achieve the goals and objectives. So what that's talking about is here we got this trail. I'm just going to use that trail example that we had before, and we want to work with the park district to run that trail on the west side of the township. And it's in our plan saying, hey, we drew that plan, we drew that trail in there, we want to do it, and now there's funding available for trails in the area. And this would add, having in a plan like this will give a lot of, give a considerable points to a project like that versus somebody who says, hey, we just dreamed up a trail and we're just going to put it in there. And they want to see that you were actually thinking about it and planning for it. Number 7 is involve stakeholders and community members in plan implementation. So, I think I've talked about this before. Sometimes when we see the whole plan, it's like it's meant to be for 20 years, or the idea is to be a broad 20 to 30 year goals. Well, that's how long some of this stuff's going to take. And so sometimes when people see all these improvements to parks or improvements to roads, or we're going to do this town center concept, and we want everything tomorrow, of course, but we can't pay for it now. We can pay for it, incrementally over the next 20 years. So involving stakeholders, that's part of that process. How do we go from here to there? We have to do it together, and it takes time to do that, and it takes money to do that. And we can't eat an elephant with one bite. We have to eat an elephant with many bites. And that's what you want to eat an elephant. But anyways, coordinate and communicate with surrounding jurisdictions. And we included ourselves in this. I don't know, work with us as well. But you also there's opportunities. We've been working with parks, for example, about sharing resources, sharing equipment. Let's say they want, one of the concepts there is like, let's say you guys want to build a ball diamond, and Brucetown wants to build a ball diamond. Rather than you both build a ball diamond, why don't you share your resources and build a really nice one big nice ball diamond facility for both of you guys to use, that kind of thing. So that's the idea of communicating, coordinating with the surrounding jurisdictions. And then the plan, probably the most important thing, especially when I talk about the county plan, because there is no county plan right now, is without a plan, you're reacting to everything. You haven't really prepared yourself for anything, so you just got to react to each emergency that comes up, you take care of. So by having a plan, now you can be more proactive and plan for, we want this really nice park facility again. We don't have the funding for it today, but we know we want this. And so now we can start figuring out what pieces, parts, or how should we phase all those projects in so we get that at some point in the future. So that's what's being proactive, is doing that rather than trying to do everything at once or just reacting to an emergency that you had no idea was coming. Do you guys have any questions about the implementation of a plan?
No.
A couple, and with the implementation of a plan, there's a couple things too about plan update that I'll just touch on real fast. A lot of times you want to update your plan every 5 to 7 years, and you're like, well, we haven't updated our plan since 1988. Well, you did do an update in 2004. I should take that back. But the bulk of the plan was last done in '88. You guys did a modified plan in 2004, and but the idea of doing a plan every 5 to 7 years is because, well, number one, the economy changes, and nobody would have ever predicted the pandemic. Probably, we always knew it could happen. We didn't actually know when it was going to happen. So when you have a pandemic, you got to be nimble and figure out how you're going to make everything work when you have a lot of your businesses are closed, for example. So there's economic changes. It could be a new business moves in, or a big business moves out. How do you, fortunately, you guys don't have that kind of a situation. We have a big like a GM plant here, and they decide to move to Canada or something like that. You lost, 2,000 jobs. But that's, that's the economy. There could be state law changes. There could be federal law changes that we don't know what those might be, but they could affect something that happens in Brimfield. It could be changing technologies. Maybe in the next 10 years, instead of driving on roads, we're in flying cars finally. So, but we can dream, can't we? And so there's all kinds of things. So if we're in flying cars, we don't have no reason to be paving roads, or at least not as many paved roads. But you get the, I think you understand the idea. That's why you update your plan every so often. And then, of course, perceptions change, needs change, that the community has. The community may be growing, community may be shrinking. How do you address those things? So you definitely want to keep the plan a living document. And again, because it's going to be on your, the goals and stuff are going to be on your website where people can look at, whenever they want. I think the public's going to have a lot more awareness of the plan and what's coming up. And I think that will help, also keep your plan updated, because people will say, hey, shouldn't we be doing something here? Or why didn't we do this? Or, you know what I'm saying? There'd be a lot more awareness than having a booklet that, like the traditional plans were done, and then they sit on your shelf or in your notebook, and you rarely went back to them. And that's kind of disappointing, but that's the reality of it. People, don't know how to find the plan if you're just a regular citizen. Okay, so let's go down to page 2. And so on page 2, we're talking about housing. Housing is one of the sections of the plan. And so in that section, the first page, we're just going to talk about, I'm just going to identify the objectives, and then we can talk about them if you want. And I thought what we do, rather than go line by line or word by word, that I would just, tell you what the 2 objectives were. You can see the strategies that are there. If you have comments or questions about them, let me know. And again, today's not the final meeting. Today's kind of like I'm walking you through it, and then we can come back to anything that you may see or have a concern with, or you want to talk about further at our next meeting in March. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So in the housing element, the first goal is to, real simple, straightforward, is to provide a balance of housing types. You want your single family. You want to allow for some multifamily. We saw back in the existing conditions map, or how much land is in residential single family, which was 4,100 acres, and there's only like 170 acres in multifamily, which is good. So you obviously have a much bigger balance of land in single family housing. So the first part is to maintain the variety of housing stock. Your zoning code is obviously very flexible. You have multiple different varieties of housing types in your zoning code, so I think you're good there. But it also talks, your strategies for that is to maintain property maintenance standards. And for example, I'll get Rootstown and Ravenna Township both have property maintenance standards. So if you're wondering what that is, that's the exterior of the buildings, and those are residential buildings and commercial buildings. But nobody's going inside anybody's building to tell them how they're going to live or anything like that. But they are asking people to keep their property maintained. Objective number 2 is to ensure the existing multifamily does not begin to deteriorate. And then you go to page 3, there's a couple more strategies for that. On page 3, objective 3 was to support development for senior housing. A lot of people, there's aging in place. As you get older, most people like to stay in their homes or stay in a home with independence, that basically caters to those who don't have to do, lawns anymore, and, shovel their own snow and cut their own grass. So senior living or senior housing is an important component that a lot of times the community is lacking. I believe we have a couple projects coming up that are senior housing related, so maybe some of that's going to be addressed here in the near future. Does anybody have any questions on the housing section? Okay.
Nope.
I mean, I'm sure if you do, when you have a chance to reread it, you can, point things out to me, and we can discuss them further at our next meeting. So in the environmental section, the goal, of course, is to preserve and protect rural agriculture and significant environmental features of importance, and optimize those values and benefits of those resources in the community to minimize impacts of development. So objective 1 is to protect the designated flood hazard areas and natural drainage systems from inappropriate development. I think that just means don't develop in the floodway. So there's a bunch of discourage that, restrict development in floodways, etc. So that's pretty straightforward. Objective number 2 on this page is to reduce runoff and potential flooding resulting from new and existing housing development. And I know we've heard concerns on Malloy Road, for example. And so when we, like, for example, we have Hickory Hills coming up off of Malloy Road, and when we talk to them, we talked about when they do their improvement plans and do their design, that they needed to accommodate as much of their runoff as possible to stay on site. And so that way their development isn't adding to or contributing to any further flooding, which is a huge concern for those residents. And so we need to be mindful of that, especially since there's a history of flooding in that part of Malloy Road. So we got to be really sensitive to that. So there's a couple strategies there about how to address flooding and to reduce runoff on the site. Going over to page 4, there's objectives 3 and 4 in the environmental section. So encourage preservation of rural open space and keeping areas from being urbanized. So that's pretty. Don't run water and sewer lines into the rural areas, otherwise they're going to turn into housing developments. Objective number 4 is to increase accessibility to the public environmentally significant areas and make connections between them. So again, there's some open space, greenways, things like that, partnering with the Portage Park District. We're, and me and Mike haven't talked to you guys yet about this, and I'm sure we will at some point, but we're working on changing our subdivision regs to create more open space in the new subdivisions. Right now, any subdivision over 20 acres only is required to have 5% open space, which isn't a lot. Really, it's 1 acre on a 20 acre piece of property. And so, we based it on lot size. So lots, subdivisions with lots that are an acre or larger, they're still at 5% open space. But for half acre to 1 acre, it's now 7% open space, or we increased it by 40%. And then we doubled the open space for lots in a subdivision that are under a half acre. So that's creating more open space. Again, hopefully removing some of the impervious surface, creating hopefully more buffer from the adjacent subdivisions, et cetera, and preserving some beauty and habitat as much as possible.
When do you want to make those changes?
For the subdivision regs?
Yep.
We are meeting with the commissioners on February 23rd to discuss those changes with them. And we're actually meeting with the Township Trustees Association on the 20th of February. We're going to have a public hearing with the developers and engineers on March 17th. We're going to take it back to the commissioners with those comments, any comments that we get, on April 1st. And then the Regional Planning Commission Board will approve them, hopefully, on April 14th, and then they'll be adopted. So we might have to amend your subdivision regs where your PD section, where I think it still only calls for 5%. But our subdivision, they might be consistent with your zoning, but they'll be inconsistent with the subdivision regulations if they're smaller than half-acre lots, for example.
Todd, I have a question regarding the 5% on a subdivision open space.
Sure.
Does your wetlands that are within the subdivision count as that 5%?
They do, but we don't want all of our open space to be wetlands. So we basically only half of your open. Let's say you have to have 10 acres of open space. We're only allowing 50% of your 10 acres to be wetlands. If you have more than that, well, that just the more wetlands you have, it doesn't count as open space. We want the purpose of the larger open space is because when you have a smaller lot, let's use Cranberry Creek. You have a smaller lots that only have 30 foot of a backyard. Those kids the kids growing up really don't have a place to play in their own yard, right? So the idea is to create some open space, some active open space where kids can play. Right. And that's the idea of increasing. That's the reason why we're recommending we increase the open space on the smaller lots. Any other questions on that one?
Did Cranberry Creek, I know they allotted some property to, over on Lynn Road to Brimfield
Yep.
with a doggy,
And that's their open space. Yeah, that's part of their open.
that was it. I didn't know whether they put in some more.
Well, Sugar Maple was a good one too. They're a good example of how a subdivision should be done. They did their little pocket parks and things like
Yep.
that. They had their trail around their development.
Yeah,
They're one of the better. Those are one of the better examples. You got some subdivisions that really I can't tell you where their open space is, and that was one of our discussions when we were talking with the group to update the subdivision regulations. That there needs to be some sort of monitoring of that, and I believe we have that. You have to have at least half of your open space in before you get through half of your lots. You know, so that the open space is there as lots are being built, and you don't save the open space to the end and the developer leaves and who's stuck with the open space, right? So we're trying to put some carrots and sticks together to encourage them to put the open space in, but also hold them to their feet to the fire if they're not doing it. Okay, is there any other questions? I'm going really fast to this. I mean, it's only been 50 minutes and I'm on page 4. If I'm going too fast, you guys got to tell me to slow it down.
Good.
we'll catch up with you.
All right. So community facilities, and that's police and fire and miscellaneous kinds of community facilities. So objective 1 is to continue to provide staffing and resources needed to maintain a safe community. So that would be police and fire. You know, making sure you have adequate police force, adequate fire, adequate staffing, adequate equipment for that kind of stuff. Number 2 on page 4, objective 2 is explore the feasibility and increase the number of parks, trails, and greenways throughout the township. So that's again for the community's enjoyment. You know, parks are community facilities, that kind of thing. And then 3 is an important one on page 5, is to ensure that growth does not outpace the ability to provide services. So again, if you have a lot of new commercial development and that's, you know, requiring you to have more police officers to handle any of the things that happen with that kind of stuff, or let's say you're building houses or other facilities and you don't have the water to provide for it, or the sewer plants can't handle it, well, you know, you got to pause until we can resolve those issues. And obviously you can't build and flush toilets that aren't going to be handled by the sewer plant, but the idea is to actually plan ahead for those things. And I'm sure water resources and the other providers such as Talmadge and City of Kent and others, you know, think ahead. But you know, it's always good to know what the capacity is and how much a new project is going to generate in water and sewer capacity, and or how it's going to impact the capacity of the existing facilities. Just so you're you know, again, keeping an eye out and staying ahead of it, and not creating other problems down the road. Economic development, there's going to be some additions to this. That section is still being finalized, but a couple of objectives on page 5 is to continue to capitalize on the accessibility of the township. Obviously, promote the development near I-76 and of course along State Route 43, and then you know, promote. One of the problems we have throughout the county and maybe throughout the nation is having an adequate workforce. So is to promote opportunities to attract talented workers and employees and have a good, well-rounded workforce for the community. Objective 2 is to promote the township assets and values, you know, marketing the area, sharing regionally or statewide, why Brimfield is a great place to be, why, you know, it's great to live here or shop here or create a business here. And then of course, we talk about the gateway, which I think I talked to Mike actually today about, that you guys have some new gateway signs, those entrances coming up in the community. But then also, you know, promote the elements of the town center, you know, to make it attractive, you know, pedestrian friendly oriented kind of community that you guys just enjoy going to. It's, you know, the one thing we talk about, and I got to be careful here, the one thing we've talked about and all the townships have talked to me about is they don't want to be Streetsboro. And once you have a road, you know, with the State Route 43 already, I guess 5 lanes wide, it's hard to be pedestrian friendly when you have a 5-lane road. You know, so we got to think of ways to be creative. And some of those would be to do some you know, you already have some landscape islands up by 261. you know, by the Bob Evans and all that, before, just north of Malloy. You probably need some more of those, you know, to kind of calm traffic down, beautify the area a little bit. Maybe, you know, if we ever had some pedestrian needs to cross, you know, the road, you know, do kind of like what they do in Kent, and you know, that's maybe not a good example, but you have pedestrian islands where you cross halfway and then you cross the rest of the way, you know, safely, rather than trying to cross 5 lanes all at once, because that makes it a little more difficult. So anyways, so that's part of economic development. And like I said, we'll probably talk more about diversification and things like that as goals and strategies going forward. On page 6 is transportation. We talk about provide a safe, efficient, connected, you know, transportation network. Minimize traffic congestion, which we've talked about as a problem in Brimfield, or it seems to be a problem at certain times of the day. We talk about land use, having a sustainable mix of land use and have a balance of growth and redevelopment, and also enhance community character. Well, actually, I just jumped right into land use, sorry. So traffic is, again, alleviate congestion, minimize traffic, that kind of things. And then I jumped into land use, which was, you know, work to simplify the zoning districts, create walkable communities in there. We're on 7. We have objective 3 is to establish a pedestrian-friendly town center for all residents, you know, at the intersection of 43 and Talmadge. Encourage a sense of community, maintain small town character of the township. And then objective 4 was the growth of the town center should continue to occur in a traditional village style of development, whatever that looks like to you. You know, how you guys think that should look and go. So in Shalersville and in Rootstown, they have design guidelines. I know me and Mike have talked about design guidelines, and I think you guys had said that, you know, you're comfortable with Mike steering that ship, and I think he's done a great job. I think Maple Crest looks really nice. It's just when Mike's not here though, and you have a new person, you might not have the same expertise in that. That's all. So you may want to think about that, you know, long term, what design guidelines might look like for the township. And then on page 8, objective 5 is provide a balanced solution of retail opportunities that do not cause adverse impacts to residential districts. You know, obviously we want to protect our residential areas. You know, they should be, you know, commercials should be around centralized water and sewer lines. Objective 6 is maintain multiple residential districts, which we talked about with your zoning district already kind of does that. High to low densities that are established based on available utilities, transportation access, topography, and geographic trends. Objective 7 on page 8 is promote the retention and productive agricultural land. So, you know, we heard over and over again in the survey that people took that they wanted to preserve the rural character of Brimfield. So we need to make sure that while we keep talking about diversified economy and development, we aren't forgetting, you know, why people like to live in Brimfield to begin with, and that's that rural character that is still, you know, a big part of the township. And then number 8 on page 8 is encourage and preserve, protect, restoration of those sites and structures which are historical, architectural, or have cultural significance. So that's basically historic preservation and historic restoration of those historic, you know, homes and buildings in the township. And we need to, you know, they're valued and we need to protect them. But I think we also, you know, I always believe this is a little different than, you know, my little soapbox has always been that those houses or buildings that are historical are value added to the community. And when we talk about preserving them, we shouldn't punish those people. We should find a way to incentivize or reward them for maintaining those homes and those buildings, because they do add value to our community. So when I talk about preservation, you know, I don't want to sound like that sounds like restrictions, because it usually does sound like that. But my philosophy has always been that there should be incentives for people to maintain those buildings and reward them in some way for having historic buildings. So that's objective 8. And then the last one is community character on page 9. So again, the goal there is to create a community identity that evokes a sense of pride, a place, pride, and quality in the eyes of the residents, business, and visitors. So one is to encourage, encourage the protection of rural character, and the other objective is to continue to retain community trust. And the community trust comment wasn't so much that there's a perception that there isn't any. It was the opposite. The survey went on and talked about how people really trusted their local officials. They believed in them. They appreciated the transparency that they've had so far. So all we're saying is that sounds like a very positive attribute to Brimfield, and we should continue that attribute. So that's why we put that in there. Again, we're using the words from the people who took the survey. So those are the crux of this. If there's any, as you guys digest this and read this and think about this some more, please tell me if there's things we're not talking about that we need to be talking about, and we'll add that in there. This is kind of like the final draft of the things, but this isn't the final draft. So, and again, it's also a living document, so it can be changed at any time. But what I'm trying to tell you is that if we're missing something, I want you guys to tell me. So that's it. It only took us an hour.
Oh, wonderful.
Excellent job. Thank you, Todd.
When you were talking about historical residents, one of the things that the Brimfield Historical Society has worked on is plaques for their homes, indicating that they're a historical site, 100 years old. We have a number of those in the township, and we've been working, of course, we've been out of business for close to a year now. So when we get that back up, I think we're going to work on trying to get every resident that has a historical house, a plaque on it to celebrate that.
Maybe we should show you what we want to do a project, and we want to do it through a grant because we don't want to charge the township. We're talking about Manaway Township, Manaway Village. We're talking about doing what's called story maps, which are very similar to the interactive maps that we're showing you or showed you, but these would be a little bit different. We're going after Ohio Humanities Grant, and so they want more of a story, not just a bunch of maps. They want a story. And so what we want to do is we want to do almost like a virtual walking tour or driving tour of the township, where you can actually see those houses. You have a point on the map or whatever. You can click. You can be sitting in your home computer. You can click on that, and it'll open up to the current picture of the house or the structure, and then a nice write-up about the history of that structure, and maybe at the bottom of that an old-timey picture. Maybe of when it was in its heyday, whatever that might be. But we'd like to have that, and then it's like literally a walking tour of the history of your entire township right there. Yeah, and I think it would be great because it'd also be great not only for existing residents, it'd be great for the kids as they're learning about their community. And then I think it'd also be great for tourists too, to people to come to visit your community and say, oh, what's that? And they can go and learn about those kind of things. So we have that in process. And I would love to show you the examples that we want to use to do that, to complete that with. And if we can do that right, and when I say do it right, if we can figure out to streamline that, it may not take that long to do, but we haven't really bit into that apple yet to figure out how long it's really going to take us. That's why we want to use grant money rather than charge a township or charge a historical society to do that work. So, but I'd love to show it to you when we get around to that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mike, are you there yet?
Yep, I'm still here. Thanks, Todd. That was great.
Yeah, thank you, Todd.
And if, like I said, I looked this over. I'm going to be looking it over thoroughly prior to the next meeting. Todd, you'll probably go over it again. We'll all go over it, but make sure you have any comments or any concerns for the next meeting then.
Mike, what I'll do is I'll set up a time. Maybe you can sit down with beginning of it. Well, hold on. like 2 weeks from today, we could probably figure that out. If that's too soon, let me know, but maybe 2 weeks from today, we can sit down and go over it. And, because one of the things too is, this is a Word document that we gave you, and we promised to do an InDesign, so almost like a magazine kind of cover. So you're seeing the raw data that Gail will take and manipulate into a really cool looking final product. You're not looking at the real cool final product yet, but the final product doesn't mean much unless the content is awesome. So, we'll definitely need to make sure that we're hitting all Mike's issues too. So we'll set up a time, Mike, to sit down and talk about.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we got a couple questions for you, Mike.
Sure.
So what's going on with the plaza? I understand he's thinking about putting everything up for sale.
That's what I've heard. I mean, I've talked to Mike just recently because I have some issues with him at the Outback down the street, or Outpost. I'm sorry, not Outback, Outpost. So we had a few issues. So I did discuss some things with him, and he was a little bit disappointed in that he didn't get approval on the apartments back there. On the property that goes along 76 behind the pool. And he said everything is for sale, is what he told me. So
The zoning turned him down on that, or was there
Yeah, the Board of Zoning Appeals, it came in and it could have fit the zoning. It looks like they put some of the apartments, really close to the homes, and I think that pretty much did it, so yeah, that's as far as I know. We'll
okay.
See what happens.
The house on 43 that had the carpet business next to it, I see it's been demolished.
Yes. You're talking about the one that Ben, well, I don't want to say his name on here, but he was a golf pro.
Ben Curtis's.
Yeah, so I sent him a letter. I did a search warrant on the house. We weren't going to take that one down, believe it or not, but we were gonna stress that he maintains it after the search warrant, because it didn't look like it was horrible shape, but he decided to just take it down. So.
Well, good. Maybe he'll put his school in there or something. And also, have you noticed that down the brick building that's down by the interstate, west of the interstate?
Yes.
I see they're putting a whole bunch of semi-trailers in there now and parking them.
There's going to be on the left-hand side where the old CB shop is. Yeah, there is actually the Board of Zoning Appeals granted a place that's going to sell sheds and outdoor play systems.
You're going to sell what?
Outdoor play systems and sheds.
Oh, okay.
Is going to be moving into there. And last I heard from him, he was going to be cleaning up the site. I'm not so sure what the tractor trailers are doing, but
yeah, there's three trailers been sitting in there for a few days. Just I didn't know if it was the same guy that we'd been after for years because he'd been parking trailers there.
It could be somebody starting all over again. I'll reach out to the guy that got the approval. And Tom Shaw still owns that property over there. So
yeah.
And he's been trying to get rid of it for quite some time.
I know. He must have got his price out of it. So I think that's the only thing that I had that I thought we would be interested in. And Wino's out of there now?
As far as across from Brimfield Steakhouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, Wino is pretty much out of it. The Pitts family owns the surrounding property. The parents died, and I believe the kids have it. And I actually have a meeting with them next week to try to expand the cemetery land back there.
Good. We need it.
Yeah, we're going to try to get 2 or 3 acres off of them. And then we have Redwood, which is going in across from Brimfield Steakhouse, which is higher end rentals. So
Were they gonna be like townhouses or apartments?
those are apartment
Okay.
houses. Sorry about the dog. Apartment houses.
Okay,
And they started like when we clicked on the Brimfield area, it looked like roughly $1,600 a month was going to be the starting price, and then they go up to close to $3,000 a month.
oh, really?
Yeah.
So they're gonna be just about like the apartments behind on Sanctuary there?
Yes, a little bit more stonework, a little bit more architectural features up on this one.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, we'll set our next meeting for March
March
the
11th.
March the 11th, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do I have anything for the good of the order?
Off the record, this is Debbie. I just wanted to say that this time at the next meeting, Mike will be older. I'm not going to say how old, but happy early birthday, Mike.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're not going to be able to retire yet though, right?
Yeah,
No,
no,
he's got a lot of years.
I'm turning 50, so yeah.
Oh, that's a big
hey.
one. Oh, yeah.
Happy birthday early.
Appreciate it.
So everybody stay safe. Get your shots.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I got mine, so
I got
Okay.
mine. First one.
everybody had to get your
I'll make-
shots.
I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
You're
Second,
second.
please. All those in favor
I'll
signify.
second.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Bye.
Okay. Have a good evening, folks.
Have a
You
safe
guys
trip,
too.
Tom.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy
Bye.
Valentine's
See ya.
Day, everybody. Bye-bye.